that I welcome this kind of examination because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
We can make our beloved country the source of all the dreams and the opportunities that she was missing.
Welcome to the American Idiots Podcast, the show where we take the most divisive headlines and put them to the debate with our diverse group of hosts. Join us as we leave no story uncovered and spare no politician. Good evening and welcome into the American Idiot Show. I am Money Mike. This week again, Mr. Black Sheep will be on hiatus, and our other two co-hosts are actually running into some scheduling conflicts. So as we work through to get you a panel, it looks like it's just going to be me and the Manic Hispanic tonight. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Show us some support if you love what we do here at Podcast Network 49 in the American Idiot Show. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and bring in the Manic Hispanic. Manny Hispanic, how you doing this week?
Oh, I'm doing good. You know, constantly bearing this load of the show due to other people not showing up really gives me a headache. And for my headaches, I like to use this roll-on, you know. Put a little
By the way,
temple, and it does amazing for a headache.
Totally caught that shade you threw at me earlier on the American Idiots page earlier. I love it.
How you been, man?
Hey, minus being sick and down on Friday, I was pretty good week. Happy to be back. Got a lot to talk about. I think we're gonna have a couple topics tonight that we're gonna have some fun with, whether it be us agreeing or disagreeing. I think we're gonna have some fun with some of these topics here tonight, right? That we're gonna be going through.
For those that don't know, what we do is we try to get 7 topics that we can get 15 minutes of conversation out of. And our 8th topic is always the American Idiot that we can usually milk 10 to 15 minutes out of to give us our 2-hour show. So sometimes we get that. Sometimes we get that in abundance and go over our 2 hours. But sometimes we just don't have a lot to talk about. And during those slow news weeks, like this week, we kind of throw in some things that are just kind of around. So if anybody ever has any topics, we encourage y'all to send us a message at the American Idiots Facebook page, and we will work things in. Absolutely.
Anything you want to hear us debate, especially if you know it's a slow news week, feel free to get them in, and we will we'll add it to the show where we can. It may not make it that week, but we'll try to work it in when we can, and we'll definitely go and try our best to entertain you with our thoughts on the situation at hand. But
as always, remember, our opinions are our opinions.
Exactly.
We're not hating on anybody, and we do not always share the opinions of others, and it definitely does not reflect the American Idiots Podcast or Network 49.
Absolutely. And I mean, one thing I will say, you know, I probably am going to be hating on Governor Cuomo tonight. So, you know, just saying, it's personal tonight. But let's go ahead and get on into it. The Capitol riot investigation. I actually sent a story in the group chat today about a gentleman that was just arrested earlier today that we can kind of get into. But before we get into that, we have a story from CBS Los Angeles about another gentleman that was arrested with the Capitol riot. Okay, so short and sweet there on the video. But I want to I honed in on that one specifically because in watching it, she mentioned something interesting. The fact that this sheriff's deputy was on personal time whenever she attended this rally. It's not clear whether she was a part of the group that actually broke into the Capitol. Obviously, the FBI thought it was serious enough that they came and investigated at her apartment. Do you see an issue as far as employment goes with this woman continuing to be employed by a law enforcement agency with what her actions were?
I do not. It depends on what's going on. The thing everybody has to remember is the Capitol building is a public building. There are many areas of that building that you can be in legally, regardless of who you are.
Right.
The only thing that I think they need to be investigating is any damages that were done. Definitely need to arrest and charge people that was causing damage to the building.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the assaults and the deaths, those need to be investigated. And I would even go as far as investigating the people that were in areas where they shouldn't have been, like the gentleman from Arkansas that was in Pelosi's private office. I mean,
yeah, with his feet up on the desk.
Yeah, you're not allowed to be there. That is obviously a restricted area. So yes, you definitely need charges thrown against you.
Right.
But
and actually,
because you were at the Capitol or you happened to be in the Capitol, but you were in a public part of it, that doesn't mean that you were doing something wrong.
Funny story about that. I don't know if I shared this when I saw it, or maybe you may have shared it earlier in the week. But the gentleman you're referring to from here in Arkansas that had that famous picture taken, he was in court this past week.
Oh, I missed that.
Yes, he was in court this past week, and he said that the charges against him were unfair. He was being mistreated.
Wow.
Oh man.
During these investigations, and what I was really looking for, and of course they didn't put any information on.
Of course not.
The FBI was supposed to be questioned by this group of investigators that has been assigned, and of course they haven't given any information on what was told because they were just questioned yesterday. So I'm sure they're in the midst of the questions. Reports that I saw, I did see that the shaman, the QAnon shaman, they're saying that he may, and it cracks me up whenever they use this kind of language, he may cooperate. Okay, so then that means he may not cooperate.
Right.
When they throw words like that out, it really cracks me up.
What they're basically saying there, if you read between the lines, is we offered him a deal. We're going to see if he's going to snitch on everyone.
Right. The other thing that I think is really telling is there's an actual call for the Senate Ethics Committee to support the FBI in their investigation.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really thinking that some senators, I'm not sure Republican or Democrat, may have been involved.
I don't like that. I feel like you're talking about true or not, and I would hope it's not true. True or not, you're using a large, broad scope to say that somebody's doing something really terrible.
Right.
And even as much as we make fun of Ted Cruz on this show, I would think Ted Cruz wouldn't do something that stupid. But it is what it is.
Think about it. If there were senators that were involved and they had a specific purpose, I would have thought that the group would have been more organized and gotten to an actual a target that they were trying to take out, or whether that target was a person or a specific room, specific filing cabinet. I would have assumed that they would have been more organized in getting where they needed to get.
I think it was kind of, and I think you were the one who came up with this, that initially they all went and they were like, yeah, we're going to overthrow the Capitol. And then whenever they got there, because it was so unorganized, everybody scattered.
Yeah, nobody knew what to do past that point.
Exactly. I think that the initial thought was, yeah, we're going to do this shit. But afterwards, it was just so unorganized that you couldn't control for everything. Rich commented, said arrest for damage. It was their constitutional right to march in and overthrow in times of tyranny. And Nessa responds, Rich, but no citizen has the right to destroy property regardless of reason. And Rich says, unless you're standing behind a BLM or Antifa banner. And once again, I would just like to establish in both instances, I'm not a destroying property kind of guy. I supported the protest back in June and July, but I do not support damaging property. Now, with that being said, you talk about times of tyranny. We're talking about that day they were needing to certify an election that was legally carried through. Donald Trump never brought forth the evidence to back up his claims of election misconduct and fraud. That's why there is no tyranny here. That argument really holds no water.
That's a big point right there. For as much as Donald Trump and the people around Donald Trump talked about everything that they had, no evidence really seemed to come up.
Right. Exactly. Rich says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, delivering their powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever deriving, excuse me. They're just powers from the consent of governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. That right there is where your argument is thrown out, Rich. Once again, they are not, there was no evidence. If Donald Trump would have come forward with a smoking gun, I'd be sitting here saying, okay, yeah, more power to you. This is some bull. But you've got to give me something. You've got to give me something to want to fight. And I mean, Manny, you're a Trump supporter.
Yes,
and
I
even
am.
you're saying, give me something.
Exactly. Even still today, if he was running today, I'd still be voting for him.
Right.
But yes, you can tell me that you've got all kinds of evidence, but until you present it, it's hearsay.
So I don't know if you saw this today, but that I sent over an ABC News clip. Authorities arrested the Oath Keeper seen with Trump advisor Roger Stone on the morning of the insurrection. I don't see anything about the formal charges, but
I did see that, and that goes back to them calling for the ethics committee to help the FBI, because, like I said, they're pointing fingers at certain senators that they feel had something to do with.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, it seems like what we're going to get here is just a broad net of arrests. And then eventually people are just going to start getting released, and, you know, hey, my bad, you know.
As I was putting this on the list, I mean, I had it on the list last week. I had it on the list this week. It's going to be an ongoing investigation. Oh, yes. The 9/11 investigation went on for how many months?
I think it was actually 2 years, wasn't it? I believe they did. And I mean, that sucker was that big.
So I imagine it's going on for a while. What had perked my ears up was them saying that they were going to question the FBI, and I thought that was a good point, because what did the FBI know, and when did they know it?
That's
and
a good
why
point.
Did nobody do anything to make sure that the Capitol was safe?
You know, that's a good point. And, you know, I believe it was you. It may have been our other co-host, Richard, that brought up about Nancy turning down the extra security that day. I mean, that still piques my interest, because if she did, and it seems like there's enough evidence to make me believe that she could have potentially, then that was wrong. Rich says there are over 4,000 counties in the U.S. Joe Biden only won like 300 of them, and yet we're supposed to believe Biden actually had more votes.
To that, Rich, I will say I agree, because I do think there was fraud. I do think things happened. But at the end of the day, it's what you can prove, not what you think.
I mean, at the same time, you look at 2016 and Donald Trump barely won what he had to win the presidency.
Right.
I mean, so Hillary could claim, oh, well, he won like 10 states. He just needed those 10 states to win 270. You know, it's one of those things we can go back and forth on. Rich says that's where the tyranny comes in. But once again, prove to me something, and bring me a smoking gun, and that's when I'll start listening as far as that goes. As far as the FBI goes, that's actually interesting because, you know, just like we just heard there, the FBI is kind of leading the charge on this investigation as far as arresting people and all of this. So we may need to actually kind of push that off onto either the CIA or the Department of Homeland Security, somebody else.
Right. They're definitely not going to go after
the
their own.
FBI. That's my idea. Rich says you can prove it. Look at any map from the election. Rich, you're talking about counties. We're talking about electoral votes. We're talking about
States.
Joe Biden did what he needed to do, just like Donald Trump did in 2016. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, counties don't turn in electoral votes. States do.
Exactly. But no, that's actually interesting to me that you bring up the FBI and what they knew, because I mean, at this point, you may need to recluse yourself.
Right.
Recluse. You may need to recuse yourself from taking the lead on this, because, you know, they arrest this woman that we were just talking about in Los Angeles, who, and I want to kind of get back into that, because a lot of people, do I support what they did as far as breaking into the Capitol? No. Do I support their ability to do what they did, though, as far as the protest? Absolutely. You know,
right.
I can only, a lot of people will be like, well, she shouldn't have been there because she was law enforcement and she should have been having the back of the government.
But she has every right to be there as well.
Exactly. I'll use what I know. In the military, as long as we weren't in uniform and we weren't actively representing the U.S. government, and I'm sure it's the same with law enforcement, you know, don't make a fool of yourself. You'll be held accountable. But
right. And the other thing is where she was at and what she was doing. I mean, just because she was there, and even if she entered into the lobby area, did she participate in vandalizing the building? If not, what do you got? Did she participate in the assaults? If not, what do you have? I mean, just because people were there don't mean that everybody was doing the same thing.
Exactly. And I think the key here with this woman specifically is she was on personal time. She wasn't taking, you know, she wasn't on company time or law enforcement time. She wasn't on, you know, anything like that.
She wasn't on the clock. She took her personal day.
Yeah. I mean, I have no problem with what she did. If it comes out, like you said, that she was acting a fool, then yeah, she needs to be charged and dealt with accordingly. But, you know, it is what it is. Right now, I'd need all of this is in such the early stage of what we're doing that unless there's that smoking gun picture, like the guy from Arkansas with his feet on Nancy's desk, there's not much that you can draw from it. You know, actually, that guy's a freaking idiot for taking that picture to begin with. Like, I understand
that's another question. I mean, if you look at that, he didn't take that picture.
He didn't. Somebody was standing and took it of him.
Yeah.
Somebody screwed him over. Maybe that's what he meant by it wasn't fair. Oh, Lord. Okay, so we're going to kind of go through Iran here. I have a story from Bloomberg Politics on Iran and what they told the Canadian Prime Minister as far as wanting to come back to the table for the nuclear deal talks.
Certainly, Iran has been resistant to U.S. offers for talks, but what are we getting now from the French?
Yeah, we're getting a little bit more animosity or seemingly animosity between Iran and France. And the question is it between Iran and Europe? When you looked at readouts of this call that these two leaders had yesterday, you saw Iran take this very staunch stance, but also say that Europe, it sees a role for Europe to be more active in the coming weeks. At the same time, you saw the French president's office say that Macron is deeply concerned about Iran's stance and call for clear and immediate gestures to signal a willingness to return to the deal. Look, I think we have to talk about the importance of European powers, France, the UK, and Germany, the E3 in particular, in trying to orchestrate this return to diplomacy between the United States and Iran. We are all paying a lot of attention to an IAEA, an International Atomic Energy Association Board of Governors meeting that's happening in Vienna right now. There is some thought that the E3 may pass a resolution censuring Iran for some of its latest moves to restrict inspections of its nuclear sites. Tehran would be very resistant to that, and that might doom potential return to that 2015 nuclear deal in the near term. And so we're very much watching the influence that these, not the U.S., but these European powers are having in a potential return to the 2015 nuclear deal.
Okay, so here's the deal. Am I surprised that they're like, because unless I'm mistaken, they were drug into the original nuclear deal kicking and screaming, honestly, by the Obama administration. They won. I'll be completely blatant with that. They got a lot. I was pissed off with the original nuclear deal, but they didn't even want that one. So it
they
does
claimed
not.
they didn't want that one.
Do what now?
They claimed they didn't want that one.
True. But it doesn't surprise me that now that they're free from it, that they don't want to go back into another one. It absolutely doesn't surprise me, and I apologize. I said the Canadian Prime Minister. The French President, Macron, is the one that he told that, he wasn't willing to come back to the negotiating table on. Once again, it doesn't surprise me. These guys, and I said this last week, and now I'm going to say it again. I mean, if you're Iran, you better watch your ass, because this, I'll give Joe credit with certain people, and I do have to put that caveat because you did remind me of this. But with certain people, Joe isn't messed up about taking business in hand, and unlike any other Democratic president that I can remember, maybe Clinton, but definitely not Obama. Obama was, let's try diplomacy until diplomacy can run out. Biden ain't messed up about, hey, here's the red line, and if you cross it, I don't care how much diplomacy I can go through, I'm gonna bomb your ass.
Right. Well, so I guess you don't need me to explain the E3 anymore.
Right.
You heard it there. For those that didn't catch it, it's basically 3 European countries that have come together to form a group that primarily make the decisions for the Europeans over there. It's
the European Union.
Germany, yes, it's France, Germany, and the UK. Like they said, they're in the middle of a conference right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's what brought all of this up. Iran has been continuously hit for violations that it has done since getting everything that it got with Obama.
Mm-hmm.
They are at a point where they are enriching
uranium
to 20% currently.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody that has looked at this, all the watchdogs that are supposed to be keeping an eye on what they're doing with their uranium, has said that there is no plausible reason for this activity.
Right.
There's no reason they should be enriching to 20% if it's just for power, like they're claiming. They have pushed to increase enrichment up to 60%. And that's where the worry is. I mean, they're already crossing the line with things they're doing. They're already getting, their hands smacked for things that they're doing, and that's why they're wanting to put those sanctions back on them.
Now, I'm not saying let's go to war again or anything like that. I know we don't need another war. Don't come at me. But with that being said, if you're Biden at this point, you can't go drop bombs yet. But why are we not at the UN every day like we were? And I'm going to draw a comparison with Iraq. Like, yo, I'm going to need you guys to do something before I do something. That's where I believe Biden's failing in this. Like, I understand the UN is kind of a figurehead, but get them on board. Let's start going through the process because it does look like something may be unavoidable here.
Right. Iran's just going to keep pushing for everything they can get.
Now, do you think that this president's going to give up as much as the Obama administration did?
No, I don't. And I've got some conspiracy theories behind that, but I believe that's for a different show, a different day.
Okay.
I don't want to believe that the president of the United States wants to allow a country that is interlaced with terrorism to have the capability to destroy the United States.
Rich, you're somewhat right. He didn't start a new war. We're still actively at war with Iraq and Afghanistan. We're still We're still conducting operations over in Iraq and Afghanistan. He didn't start a new one.
We are still considered in wartime.
Yeah. But no, I mean, he's completely right. This is looking likely like our next, at least, conflict. And, Joe's having a lot on his plate right now looking at just this alone. So I wouldn't want to be him, but I'll tell you, I feel like yet again, he's slow playing this a little too much.
Right. But at the same time, you've got to kind of step back and let the E3 take care of much as they can.
True. I mean, and let's be honest, we do have to take our thoughts out of it as well, in that they're closest to these mofos.
Right.
Like if they're gonna get something today, they're gonna get those closer countries that are not halfway across the world.
Right. I mean, how many of those countries already have nuclear weapons?
Right. Very true.
So they would pose a bigger threat to Iran than the United States at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand why Biden would be backing up and kind of letting it go for now.
Okay.
See what they're going to do,
Well, it's definitely another one, kind of like the Capitol riot, where it's gonna be long developing, and we're gonna have to keep our eye on it. I feel like we're on a path towards another conflict, but the beautiful thing about this, even at the last second, something could pop off, because I believe we were actually heading towards conflict when the first Iran deal came about. So you never know when this dude is gonna stop playing chicken with his own people. Okay, here we go. Here's going to be the fun one. I think me and you are going to get to roast this dude for quite some time. But Mr. Cuomo, Governor Cuomo there in New York, everybody's golden boy from the COVID-19 pandemic. And this, I believe it's been over the past week. It may have been the past 2 weeks. 3 women have come out and accused him of sexual harassment. And he's had quite a comeback this week. And we have this story from the CBC News, The National on YouTube.
I certainly never, ever meant to offend anyone.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's voice quavered slightly today as he faced the cameras for the first time since being hit with 3 accusations of inappropriate behavior.
I truly and deeply apologize. I am embarrassed.
It's been a rough few months for Cuomo, embroiled by scandal over his handling of nursing homes, accused of covering it up. Then, in the last week, 3 women, 2 of whom work for the state, have accused Cuomo of unwanted touching and kissing and sexual harassment.
I never touched anyone inappropriately. We have good news, bad news.
It's a stark reversal of fortune for a politician who relished in the spotlight during the height of the pandemic. Cuomo's humorous and informative daily updates filled a void left by then-President Trump, even won Cuomo an Emmy. But many political observers say that kinder person didn't match the bullying presence that's marked Cuomo's career.
Well, I would say the governor is facing the biggest scandal of his political career. And so we saw him at the most contrite we've ever seen him.
Critics say Cuomo is avoiding taking responsibility. Lindsey Boylan, a former state official who accused Cuomo of an unwanted kiss, tweeting, "How can New Yorkers trust you, New York Governor Cuomo, to lead our state if you don't know when you've been inappropriate with your own staff?"
He's kind of pleading ignorance that strains credibility, because this is a governor who signed into law some very significant anti-harassment laws.
Cuomo says he's not resigning, even as bipartisan calls for his impeachment grow.
I don't think that it's possible for the governor to continue in his position while he is under this investigation.
Cuomo's political fate is now in the hands of his attorney general, who will appoint an independent investigator. The results of that investigation could determine if he remains in office. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
Andy, my boy. Can I call you Andy? Andy, I'm gonna need you to stop, man. I mean, like, he doesn't even, just listening to him there, he doesn't buy his own bullshit, in my opinion. Right. There's pictures out there, dude. Like, you certainly did not touch anybody inappropriately. I guess it's up to discretion if touching somebody on the lower back is inappropriate. I would say that unless you are in an intimate relationship with that person, you probably shouldn't be doing that. Oh man, in my opinion, there's no choice. He has got to resign. Like, Al Franken is the perfect example, and I know Black Sheep, if he was here, would be bringing him up. Al Franken was just accused of something like this, and they immediately came for him and forced him to resign from, I believe he was a senator from Minnesota or Minnesota or Michigan, one or the other. And they immediately forced him to resign. You're the governor of one of the biggest states in the country, one of the highest populated states in the country. You've signed this legislation into law about harassment. I don't care how good you did on COVID. It's got to be across the board, in my opinion.
Yeah, but what about the few people that had come out and accused Bill Clinton?
I mean,
rape.
We've talked about that.
Full-blown rape, and then he still went on to become president.
We've talked about that before. I mean, do I think Bill Clinton would Bill Clinton survive as a politician in today's society? Absolutely not. No. Not a chance. And that's where we're dealing with, is today's society and today's set of circumstances is where we are in today's society and in today's set of circumstances. I don't believe they can impeach him. That one kind of made me scratch my head a little bit, but somebody from the National Party or something needs to be like, bro, you got to get out of there.
And one of the things that I'm going to bring up, and I don't mean to be insensitive. If anybody takes this insensitively, that is not my intention. Until you get to that point of don't touch me like that, you don't know that they don't want you to touch them like that.
I'm going to need a little bit more explanation on that one.
Sometimes you can be in a room and flirting with the eyes, flirting with body language, and you come over and whisper in somebody's ear, and all of a sudden they're appalled that you would even suggest something. That's
okay.
like,
I can see your point.
I know that was a border until you just told me that was a border. Now, if I stop, does that still make me a rapist or however you want to look at it?
So here's, and actually, the diva was talking about, how we're going to have to define sexual harassment from sexual assault. This is sexual harassment. Nobody's accusing the governor of rape or anything like that. They're accusing him of harassing him through touching,
right.
unwanted kissing, etc., etc.
If you make a mention at something you would like, or something you were interested in doing with someone, and they say no, they're not interested, and you leave them alone, is that still harassing?
So my question is this, though, and like it or not, you're the governor of a state. You're also the person's boss. They directly report to you. Should you not hold yourself to a higher standard and, in my opinion, use some common sense and be like, probably not smart to be touching this chick's ass right now?
It was lower back, not ass.
Well, yeah, but close enough. I mean, probably not smart to be kissing this chick, Right. Even if it was wanted, oh my God, somebody could get a picture. This could ruin me. I believe the governor is married. My goodness.
Right.
I could be wrong on that. Nessa says if you leave them alone, no, it's not harassing. And do you know that's?
I asked because I've actually been through that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how much I want to put out of my life, but
right.
I actually had a gentleman tell me he wanted to feel me inside of him. I let him know I was not that kind of gentleman.
Right.
And he never bothered me again about it. So I never felt harassed about it. Now, if he would have continued to say stuff, yeah, that's harassment.
Exactly.
So that's why I'm saying, at what point is the line?
I would agree, and I guess, and Nessa, Rich, whoever's watching, you can feel free to comment your opinion on this. Would it be? Is there a catch-all as far as that goes, or would it be up to the person's discretion? And I mean, if we leave it up to the person's discretion, that leaves a lot of air for perception too. I don't know. See,
because I've also been on the other side of that, where I've been at a bar drinking and I've come on to a beautiful woman, and they have told me that they're not interested.
Would that be considered?
Right. At what point is it harassment?
I think the reason why this is so unacceptable to me, where I draw the line, is because she does, or all three of them directly reported to him. So that just becomes, PR nightmare. But as far as just seeing somebody in a bar, that's actually a good question. That literally is a good question. Like, what's the rules you play by nowadays? If somebody tells you, hey, back off, and you don't back off, obviously, yes, it becomes a problem. But what about beforehand?
Right.
When you didn't know? That's a good point. That is a very good point. How do you feel about the governor? Do you think he has to resign, or do you think he can continue in his current position?
At this point, with so many people against him, I don't think that he's an effective governor any longer. Therefore, yes, I do think he needs to resign.
Do you think they can really get a impeachment though? And by the way, I've never heard of I've heard of recalls on the governor level, but not an impeachment.
Impeachment. I mean, the impeachment process is to take people out of power, so I guess it would work the same.
I thought, though, that for impeachment, and once again, this may just be on the presidential level, you have to charge them with a crime. Are we now formally charging him? is harassment an actual offense that you can be arrested for?
Yes.
Okay. I was unsure on that. I thought once it went into the realm of assault was when it became criminal.
No. People get arrested for harassment all the time.
Okay. Nessa says if the person asks you to leave them alone or says no and you continue to do it, it becomes harassment at that point. That's my understanding as well, as far as that goes. She also went on to say, I think people claiming that it's harassment beforehand have the mentality of being above others. If it was someone they found attractive, they probably wouldn't call it harassment. And I would agree. I would absolutely agree with that statement, Nessa. And I apologize if I'm butchering your name, but definitely I would agree with that statement. If somebody, came on to me that I found attractive, obviously I would, appreciate those advances more so than somebody that I didn't find attractive. And, somebody could potentially in a different mindset, do something. I would hope that nobody would be like that, but yeah, that's where we are as a society too. I do believe there are those people out there that are ready to scream harassment at any moment. And those are the people that really damage the people that, that do have these issues. Nessa says, it's right. Okay, right on. She's telling me that my pronouncing was correct, or pronunciation was correct. There we go.
Then you look at going back to Bill Clinton. At what point was it harassment? I mean, because Monica Lewinsky was game for a lot of it.
Monica was game until Monica found out that she could get her name in the history books. Let's be honest here. But I've thought about this before. Think about this. JFK, one of the people that, even Republicans, Democrats, bipartisan, we look back fondly upon JFK. JFK wouldn't survive in today's environment.
Right.
It's crazy that, that's where we are. But at the same time, it is what it is. The president, you do have to hold these people like governors, senators, what have you, elected officials to a higher standard. I believe that's fair. Nessa says she was all for it until she got caught. It's kind of like we were talking about the guy earlier saying he may cooperate. She was ready to snitch on Bill. Hey, by the way, I got this dress in my closet. Let me do some DNA.
Once she found out she could get a book deal.
Right, exactly. Oh man, we're probably pissing a lot of people off just by laughing at this topic tonight. I'm sorry if we are. I'm sorry, y'all. We got to make our personalities. We got to make jokes out of this stuff. Honestly, we do. Okay. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on before we get in any more trouble. Before we get canceled. The Biden administration admits it hasn't even considered sanctions against MBS. Now, for those unfamiliar with this is the gentleman who admitted that he killed, and his name's escaping me, the journalist, back in, I want to say, wasn't it 2018?
Yes, it was 2018, and it's Jamal Khashoggi.
Okay.
Khashoggi.
Very true, Nessa. Exactly. Before we get canceled, we'll get into that in just a moment. But no, that's a problem for me. Like you said, it depends on who you are, and that bothers me. Well, like I understand
you have to point out a couple of facts real quick. Let me point out a couple of facts real quick. Okay. Biden has maintained sanctions on China that Trump imposed. Okay. They imposed sanctions on Russian officials in response to the imprisonment and poisoning of Putin's opposition leader, Alexei Navalny.
Right.
Okay. So he's throwing sanctions on people that are doing stuff. And all this guy did, he got poisoned, but he was treated. He's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
He was in prison for a couple of years. for false allegations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yet this guy orders the assassination of not somebody overseas. This was a reporter for the Washington Post.
An American.
Yes.
Yes.
A reporter for the Washington Post. And he has admitted, yeah, I ordered the assassination. I ordered the dismemberment. And they still don't know where this guy's body is. And they hindered the investigation around the whole thing.
So, and this is what worries me too. And just by you saying that, this is what worries me. Is this is getting into that territory that Trump kind of dangled. Trump kind of dangled during the presidential election, saying that Biden would be able to be played. This guy right now is kind of playing Biden like a puppet.
Yeah.
I know that I praised Biden for what he did earlier, but this is where it bothers me. Like, if we're going to drop bombs on Iran, Iran?
It was an Iranian base in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, there we go. If we're going to drop bombs there, and we're not going to drop bombs when an American is assassinated, and you literally have this guy claiming.
And I'm saying he's an American. He wasn't an American, but he worked for the American papers.
Okay. I thought he was an American, but still unacceptable. If you're not going to apply the same logic in this situation, and this guy isn't even just like, hey, I did it, and then he's going to keep his mouth shut. Like, honestly, and excuse my language, he's pulling Biden's bitch card right now.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, what are you going to do about it? Yeah, I did it. Like, he's taking a victory lap right now. That's a problem. That's a problem for the presidency.
So, but what do you do? I mean, and who knows what he's holding over Biden's head?
That's what I'm wondering.
This is where I start looking at, okay, what all was Hunter Biden involved in? What countries was all of that where Hunter was getting his money?
Good point.
So, I mean, how much of this has already been bought and paid for while Biden was vice president?
That's a good point. You know, you mentioned the oil obviously would be the big red beacon as far as what you would expect, but there may be these smaller, side things. And I don't come after this whole Hunter Biden and all that from the oh my God, I can't believe this would happen. How dare a politician act like this? I come at this as he's a politician. I mean, they're into every single one of them in Washington are into some shit they absolutely should not be into, no matter whether it was Donald Trump or whoever. And if you don't believe Donald Trump was into some shit, come on now. But anyway, anybody at that level is into some shit. That's actually interesting. That would be a scenario, though. I'm going to hate using this word, but I mean, derelict of duty impeachment?
Right.
I mean, if it comes out to that, proving that was the reason he didn't act may be a little bit more difficult. But
well, it definitely makes him look shady. But then this goes back to the way they were trying to point those fingers during the election.
True. And I mean, like I said, right now, this is, a PR nightmare for the Biden administration, in my opinion, because, he literally is doing exactly what Trump said, whereas he is being this wolf for everybody else in this situation. Something about this is just not striking the ear correctly.
Right. And while he didn't really have to be the wolf for China because Trump had already put the sanctions in place.
Right.
He just didn't lift them. And the fact that he's not going after Putin himself, but just some other officials that are in Russia for these other things, it's easy to pass that off as, yes, he was hard with certain people, but not really the country.
Right. True.
And
True.
this goes to that same token. Because if I'm not mistaken, he did impose some sanctions, or we did impose some sanctions on some Saudi Arabian officials, but not the gentleman who admitted that
Not
he
MBS
ordered an
specifically.
assassination.
Well, and here's the problem that you run into. If you let this, and I mean, we already have a nickname for him, MBS. Here's a hint that people called Osama bin Laden before 9/11. He was called UBL. Like,
Yeah.
we're already calling this dude MBS. Like, this is how you embolden these dudes, is you let them get away with the small shit. And then they're
Right.
like, well, if I can get away with this, next thing you know, it's the coal. And then the next thing you know, we got 9/11 over again. I mean,
Right.
you gotta.
At some point, you have to put your foot down.
I will never say I want to sit behind that desk, because my goodness, you've got to know when the line is, and you've got to decide where that line is, and that's a tough decision. But, bro, you got to, if you want that job and you actively sought that job, you better be prepared to do this. And right now,
And I guess my biggest question on the whole thing is imposing sanctions on specific people instead of specific countries.
what is a sanction on a person?
Accomplish? Do what?
What is a sanction on a person going to do?
Right. And that's what I'm saying. What does that even accomplish? So you're not going to work with the number 2 in charge anymore, or the number 3 in charge, but you still got that line open to number 1. I mean,
yeah. Hey,
what
buddy, I'm going to need that shipment of oil next week. Like, come on now. Hey, This is something where Biden is failing, in my opinion. And any of my left friends can feel free to comment and let me know where I'm wrong on that thinking. But
if
yeah,
we're missing anything, yes, please let us know.
Do what now?
If we're missing anything, yes, please let us know.
Yeah, feel free. If we're missing anything, but right now this looks like a complete failure of the Biden administration. So feel free. Okay, moving on. Dr. Seuss, Eminem, and cancel culture. Okay, so I want to take this line by line. So we'll start with the big one, Dr. Seuss. 6 books of Dr. Seuss's are not being printed anymore. I don't want to say they're being canceled. They're not being printed anymore. I believe, according to the Diva, this was a decision made by the Seuss estate. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this was a decision.
The head of is Dr. Seuss's son, if I'm not mistaken.
Rich, we don't have a call-in number. If you wanna come on camera, I can send you the link. Just let me know, and I'll send you the link if you want to come in and discuss this stuff. But yeah, Seuss, 6 books. Now you were telling me this all started in one Virginia school,
Virginia
correct?
teacher had an issue with one of the books and raised the issue. By the end of that week, or by the end of the day, if I'm not mistaken, it had blown up to everybody saying that the Virginia school district was going to ban the books in their school. As that started going viral, apparently Dr. Seuss's son, which I believe is over the estate, made the call to discontinue printing of those 6 books. But you've got a lot of libraries that have decided to pull them off the shelves. You've got a lot of bookstores that have decided to pull them off the shelf. So it became more than
just taking
the
them out
estate
of
deciding we're not going to print it anymore.
Right.
The way cancel culture is going nowadays, sometimes people think, well, if I get in front of it, I won't look bad anymore. And that's what I think is here. I think it is cancel culture that has caused people to make decisions based on what they feel they will be judged as if they were to let it go on.
Well, and mind you, that's exactly what I told you before we came on the air. I believe this is. I believe this was Seuss's estate getting out in front of it and saying, you know what? I'm not going to let you talk shit about my family. So we're just going to go ahead and take these 6 books back, and you guys can keep the biggies. You guys can keep, your green eggs and ham and your cat in the hats.
Now,
those
4 of them I had never heard of before. 2 of them I had heard of. 1 of them we actually have, and I looked everywhere around this house to try to find the copy because I don't remember what was racist in that.
I don't know. I know that
if I Ran the Zoo is the one that I know that we have a copy of. I don't remember what was racist in that. And then the Diva shared the page that apparently was offensive from you saw it on Mulberry Street.
Mm-hmm.
The topic or the quote was I saw a boy who ate with sticks. Am I correct with that?
Let me go back and find it. Of course, I'm gonna have to, go through these and freaking look. Okay, here we go. To be clear about what's okay. Seuss. This is the books you shared with the different. Oh my goodness. By the way, y'all, if y'all could only be a part of our group chat and see some of the stuff that Manny Hispani shares from time to time. Okay, here we go. A Chinese boy who eats with sticks, a big magician doing tricks. And I'll go ahead and share my screen here. And I think what was offensive was the actual caricature, and I believe I'm saying that correctly, of the way that the Chinese people were being portrayed. The gentleman here obviously wearing, some, I guess, traditional, what's the word? Not Mayan. Traditional Chinese garb, and he's a yellow gentleman. I don't know. Somebody said something about his eyes. I can't tell from this picture.
Because he's got slants for his eyes. He's got 2 lines instead of an actual eye. I remember being a kid and pulling the corners of my eyes and talking about being Chinese, being Oriental. I mean,
that age,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know of any kid that didn't do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And saying that, what is we saying? I'm honestly
saying Dr. Seuss had some very political comics from World War II. I haven't heard of those. That's actually interesting.
But I mean, they do have drawn out eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a characteristic, I don't understand why people think that's offensive. It is a specific characteristic to a specific type of person.
True.
Okay. And the fact that it says I saw a boy eating with sticks.
Mm-hmm.
This is from the viewpoint of a child. We all know that Dr. Seuss, well, I'd say we all know. I don't know if everybody knows. Dr. Seuss decided to use sight words to write his first book. That's what all that was about. He wanted to find an easier way to teach toddlers to use sight words. So he wrote stories using primarily sight words.
Mm-hmm.
A toddler seeing somebody eat using chopsticks to eat with, how else would you describe it? At 6 years old, at 7 years old. How are you going to put that?
Nessa makes a good point. Same thing that, you brought up. It's a cartoon of what Asian people actually look like. It's an interpretation. And, that's a good point. So I'm stuck here. I understand why you want to get out in front of this and say, hey, okay, maybe this is offensive to a certain person. Cool, I want to bring this back. But I also understand people who say, dude, these are classics. What? I mean, what's next? Huckleberry Finn? I think actually Mark Twain has gotten come for, but go ahead.
Here's my question. Who's offended? I don't see Chinese people holding rallies talking about this is offensive.
It's a good point.
I don't see Asians holding rallies saying this is offensive. I don't see Japanese people calling news stations talking about how offended they are at this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've said it before. I'm not looking for white people to defend me as a Mexican when some anti-Mexican or anti-Hispanic thing comes across. I can fight my own battles. But for some reason, there is a certain group of people that feel it's their duty to fight on behalf of other people. And the crazy thing is they will get to the point where they tell the person to shut up, shut up, Mr. Mexican. We're going to fight this for you. Well, wait a minute. Why are you taking my voice from me to tell them how they're doing me wrong? That's a big issue.
And Rich did share these comics with me here in my Facebook Messenger. Here's one, The Appeaser, and of course, I believe these are Nazis. It says, "Remember, one more lollipop, and then you all can go home," and then you all go home. We have one here, Hitler, and that's not Mussolini, is it?
I don't know who the dictator was back then.
I don't believe it's Mussolini. I could be wrong. Getting the boot from 7 million new U.S. taxpayers. And then a woman reading a book to her children, Adolf the Wolf, and the wolf chewed up the children and spit out the bones, but those were foreign children, and it didn't matter. Obviously, these comics being against the idea, I believe at the beginning of the war, that we shouldn't have intervened. Rich said, don't see Jews saying how they're offended by Dr. Seuss, and if anyone has a right to be offended,
right.
Touche, good point.
I mean, it's like I'm saying,
I think at this point you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's where I'm at with Dr. Seuss. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Well, like I said, at the end of the day, it's a group of people who feel they have to go out and save the world.
Yes.
From everything. So that pretty much covers the Dr. Seuss, and him writing political cartoons at a time when we were looking at war across the world. I don't think that played a whole lot into what he thought of people.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, what I got from those comics were, hey, we need to go help these people out. That's
anytime that they drew Hitler, they were talking about Nazi Germany.
Right.
So they weren't talking about the individual people.
Right. Okay, so now we get into Eminem. And this one is just literally, I mean, as soon as I told you what it was, you hit me with I think 3 different lyrics that are just so much more offensive.
Yes.
And I mean, trust me, I love Eminem. So this one I'm going to take personal. Gen Z, I'm coming for you, bro. So Gen Z has decided on TikTok that the song Love the Way You Lie from Eminem and Rihanna, some 11 years ago now at this point, should get Eminem canceled, and specifically the lyric. And I hope you have your lyrics from that you shared with me earlier on tap ready to go. But specifically the lyric, if she ever leaves, I'm going to tie her to the bed and set this house on fire. Number one, that's the lyric you pull from that song? I mean, That whole song is about a fucked up relationship. Like, that's what it's about, is this dude's an asshole and we don't like it. Like,
If anything, I would say it brings awareness to
exactly
issues of domestic.
Exactly. And by the way, Eminem has since dropped a track that was a giant middle finger to these Gen Z people. But, anyway, continue with these lyrics that you shared.
And it wasn't lyrics that I put out there. It was basically topics of song.
Right.
You had topics where he was talking about murdering his wife and throwing her body in the trunk and going to dump her while their child was in the car.
Right.
You have a song where he's talking about all kinds of stuff with his mom, drug abuse and stuff like that. You have the song "Stan," where he talks about
not get him canceled.
No doubt. He's talking about a fan who is so obsessed with Eminem that when his girlfriend suggests that maybe he should back off a little bit, he decides to tie her up, put her in the trunk, and then drive off of a bridge to drown them both.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why they decided to take "Love the Way You Lie."
Right.
Maybe because they're so young, they just hadn't heard of this other stuff. I don't know.
Nessa says, my thing is like, isn't there enough new stuff for y'all to do? Don't y'all have anything better to do than pick apart media from 10 plus years ago to find something to be offended by?
No, they don't. That's the problem.
This is the problem. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and these like 13-year-olds have nothing better to get on TikTok and complain.
They feel that they have to save the world. But someone needs what?
Someone needs to cancel this damn Rona so these dumbass kids can get back on school and go back to dumbass kid drama. You ain't ready for the big leagues yet. Too much time on their hands. And furthermore, you now have this cancel culture who complain about being voiceless, going after an artist that literally gave a voice to the voiceless white rappers in a majorly African-American business. True.
Yeah.
True.
So Dr. Seuss, Eminem, issues have recently been raised against Grease. The movie Grease.
Oh my God.
Issues have been raised against Mr. Potato Head.
Right. Mr. Potato Head is now Potato Head.
And, I have started seeing memes talking about, don't go after us as cancel culture when y'all were doing the same thing in the 80s. And I do remember. I remember the rant on music.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. I remember the rant on music where they tried to get specific labels put on different music. They actually had D. Snyder from Twisted Sister going into Congress to talk about.
He actually ate them alive.
Yes, he did. But I remember them coming down on that, trying to, but that's the difference. They weren't trying to cancel it for everybody. They weren't trying to take it off the shelves.
They were trying to
get it, get a stamp put on it so that you would understand it was obscene language.
Right, exactly.
It was more of a censor, not a totally do away with it.
Huge difference.
Yes.
Nessa says most of Eminem's music is about his life and the things he has seen and been through. So because it hurts someone's feelings, people aren't allowed to share their stories anymore. That's like saying because I don't like pizza, no one else in the world should ever be allowed to eat pizza again. Agreed.
That's basically what they're doing.
The perfect, scenario. Richard says, you know what? I'm done. I can't be pulled over anymore by police because I identify as a donut and cops offend me because they eat people. Is this how this cancel thing works? I mean, maybe. I guess technically police, we tried to cancel police for much better reasons, but maybe that one will work.
So yes, I remember the conservative church being against D&D and Harry Potter, Magic the Gathering, and Pokemon.
Yeah, I remember the Harry Potter.
Okay, but they weren't trying to take everything off the shelves.
Harry Potter, they may have been, because they were burning books, weren't they?
Were they?
I thought they were burning books. I could be wrong in that one.
I remember them talking about it, but I didn't remember any book burnings. Not saying it didn't happen. I mean,
yeah, no. I mean,
church people are.
If it did, it was probably the crazies that are out there handling snakes and stuff.
Right?
Westboro Baptist churches of the world.
But,
man, that's a name I ain't heard of in forever.
It's crazy because when the church was doing it, people were against the church for saying, oh, we shouldn't allow our kids to look at this. And now those kids that have grown up are saying, oh, we got to get all of this out of here forever.
I mean, think about this. Some of the you're talking about Eminem being canceled. Could you imagine? And once again, we were just talking about Cuomo and how JFK wouldn't survive in today's world, and neither would Bill Clinton. Could you imagine Tupac in today's world? Could you imagine Biggie Smalls in today's world?
Right.
Oh my God, they would have been canceled before they got started.
The whole, gangster rap.
Oh my goodness, NWA.
NWA, yeah.
Oh man. Rich says, I mean, the writer of Harry Potter is a pedophile. So, I haven't heard that one. That's actually interesting. I've never heard that J.K. Rowling was a pedophile. Actually, a lot of people are pissed off at J.K. Rowling because she refused to go along with the trans thing. But anyway, we'll get off the soapbox on this one because my goodness, we'll circle back around though. Trust me. The EPA and the Serestos collars issue. So I told you I didn't remember seeing this story, but once I saw what it was, and all I had to do was literally search Serestos, and it popped up. Like, holy crap! So,
and that's the problem. You're saying you don't remember this story. That's the problem right there. The fact that it isn't out there.
You're right. So we have the story from 13 on your side.
13 loves pets, and our big story at 5:30 focuses on keeping your animals safe. An investigative report published in USA Today warns that one of the nation's most popular flea collars could be harmful to your pet.
It says the EPA has documented 75,000 complaints linked to the Seresto flea collar, including 1,700 deaths.
This is what the collar looks like. Today I spoke with Jonathan Hediger from the Midwest Center of Investigative Reporting. I asked him why the EPA says it hasn't issued a warning to the public.
So the EPA said that they've gone through the proper channels for registration of the pet collar, and that they haven't determined this to be enough of a factor to alert the public, even though other agencies like the FDA might alert the public when a couple hundred dogs have a bad reaction to something like dog food or something like that. The EPA determined that this isn't a high enough level to warrant that.
Did they happen to say, like, what level does it have to get to for them to warn?
So they didn't have any sort of benchmark or anything. They just said that that this hadn't reached that level, and that all sorts of pesticides have incidents, and that this is just one of those. This is just part of that.
And what are some of the signs that owners should look for if their pet is having a reaction?
So a lot of times with the dog owners and that I talk to and that I've seen reports on, it's a lot of times the first sign is a rash around the neck. So if you remove the collar, the neck looks a little pink. And I think there's a few, you can find examples of that linked to in my story. And then there's also the most significant impacts are a lot of times neurological impacts, such as seizures or starting to walk funny or things like that. And if that starts to happen, a pet owner is supposed to remove the collar and then take the dog and wash it off immediately.
So also, according to your report, at least 1,000 people have contacted the EPA to complain about these collars. Can you describe some of those complaints that they've issued?
Yeah, so the most common types of issues were dermal symptoms, like they broke out in a rash or had hives. But there were a few significant issues with neurological symptoms. There was a 12-year-old boy who slept in a bed with a dog wearing the collar, and he started having seizures and had to be hospitalized. And then there was also a 67-year-old woman who slept with a dog, and also started reporting having like heart arrhythmia and fatigue, and also had to go into the hospital.
We reached out to Elanco, the company that makes Seresto. A spokesperson told us it is critically important to understand that a report is not an indication of cause. They explain if a dog is wearing a collar and experiences an adverse event, the collar would be mentioned in the report. They go on to say the company takes the health and well-being of pets very seriously. You can watch my complete interview with the investigative reporter on 13 on Your Side's YouTube page.
75,000.
Yeah.
And they had the audacity to say
It's not a cause. A report is not a cause.
I mean, are we waiting until somebody dies, till a human dies?
No, it's got to be several deaths. I mean,
I didn't know there was human deaths. I thought there was just pet deaths.
Right now, it's only pet deaths.
Mm-hmm.
But they will have to wait until there's several human deaths for the EPA to step in.
Oh my goodness.
75,000 incidents, and 1,000 of those are human. But on top of that is 1,700 reports of pet deaths. I mean, and them talking about, well, there was one kid that had seizures. One lady had some heart arrhythmia.
I mean, these people are going to get sued. And just rightfully so. Like, we talk about people getting sued all the time, but I mean, this is one of those where the justification definitely meets it. By the way, I would just like to say that investigative reporter had to know that he was going to be on TV. And I'm just saying, when your mustache is like lined up like this, bro, I mean, I know I need a haircut, but come on now, bro.
He was talking worse than us. I mean, we don't do this professionally by any means, but his speech patterns and his searching for words while he's on the air, it's like, dude, come on.
You know what he reminded me of? Have you ever seen Trailer Park Boys? He reminded me of Bubbles. Oh my God, just Google Bubbles.
Okay.
Trailer Park Boys. And oh my God. But anyway.
This is what I look at when I see a story like this. The EPA, which is a government entity that is supposed to be protecting the people, has not issued any kind of warning. You don't have to cancel it. You don't have to pull it from. Just issue a warning saying, "Hey, these reports are starting to come in."
Right.
This is our government that is supposed to be protecting the people. So what else are they allowing?
Exactly. That's the crazy thing to me. Like, so one child death and you see these toys being recalled immediately.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on that there have been 75,000 reports and not one recall? Not one.
Right.
What are we paying you for, bruh?
Good question. Apparently, we ain't paying as much as Serestos is paying them.
Right? Because, I mean, the fact that they just put out that statement alone, well, the caller would be mentioned if it was the cause. Motherfucker. Oh my goodness, that just makes my brain hurt right there.
Yeah.
You're right though. Like,
and the other part is, another testament to this kind of stuff is the fact that the clip that you pulled was from Channel 13.
Channel 13 News.
There you go. Why was it not reported on by an ABC or a CBS or an NBC, a major news, CNN? Why don't we have a story from them?
Yeah, it took some digging for me to find.
Why are they refusing to report on this stuff?
Yeah, why is basically 7 on Your Side our affiliate of that? Why are they the ones that are doing this report and not CNN, like you said, Fox News, anybody else? And, it goes into exactly what we all know, money, big businesses. Yeah. Goodness gracious, 75,000 and not a single, barely a whisper.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. It's absolutely asinine to me, actually. Whew, they're definitely in the running for American Idiot of the Week. They're not going to win. They're definitely in the running. Okay.
Yeah, if I would have thought about that, yeah.
Yeah.
But what would you put, Serestos or EPA?
Ooh, both. It's got to be a tie in that case. I mean, for that statement alone, though, I think Serestos kind of nudged in the victory circle there. Okay, so ocean currents are appearing to slow down. We have a story from a weather workshop on ocean currents that'll kind of explain what this means for us.
A new study came out last month signaling a weakening ocean current in the Atlantic. 3 News meteorologist Ryan Shoptaw joins us in studio to explain what this could mean for the coastal bend. Ryan?
Yeah, hey there, Brian. Ocean currents supply heat to parts of the world like Texas, the East Coast, Europe, and more. But researchers are finding consistent evidence that the Atlantic current is slowing down. We explain the significance in this week's weather workshop. Ocean currents affect our climate right here in Texas, providing heat to the Gulf of Mexico and around the world. But recent studies show this current is slowing down, which could bring dramatic changes down the road. In the Atlantic, warm water travels from the equator to the U.S. through the Gulf Stream. Afterwards, it moves north, and the temperature begins to cool, gaining salt along the way. Becoming dense, it sinks into a deep ocean current moving south. This is part of what we call the thermohalene circulation, thermo referring to the temperature and halene meaning salt. According to the research from Nature Geoscience and other climate institutes, the Atlantic circulation is at its weakest state in centuries. Melting from Greenland's ice sheet and increased rainfall has put more fresh water into the sea, lowering the amount of salt and slowing down the currents. Scientists say that these weaker currents could mean colder winters, changing rainfall patterns, and more active hurricane seasons. This is not the first research to point out a weakening current, and most likely not the last. Still, the data is concerning and points to a shift in our climate sooner than we think. So the current is weak, and if the current continues to slow down, this would disrupt climate across the globe. Nothing imminent, but something to watch. We'll keep you posted. Brian.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
So basically what he means is in like 300 years, we're going to be dealing with it. Now, I know you were looking down. I think you were grabbing a bite to eat when they showed this. But, man, they showed this hurricane that was like the whole size of the whole eastern seaboard coming. Like, I'm like, bro, can you really doomsday this out anymore? But, I mean, this is just another story, to me at least, of, something we already know. Okay, yes, we are affecting our climate. He mentioned specifically the polar ice caps melting, releasing more fresh water, and disrupting that saline and that salt water, basically. Releasing fresh water into the ocean is a problem, I guess. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I would have thought that, the more salt that was in the water, the thicker it would be, therefore the slower the current would be. But he's saying the fresh water is what slows the current. So I don't know. I'm not an oceanographer, so.
Exactly. It means 300 years down the road instead of 600 years down the road, we may have a problem. Do I honestly think we need to make some changes to, slow this down at least? Do I think we can completely stop it? Absolutely not. This is the world. It goes through changes. Can we slow it down? Absolutely. By doing things that, do we need to be a little bit more environmentally friendly? Yes. But we're going to completely slow this shit down or completely stop this shit? Absolutely not. I'm going to need y'all to chill.
That's the problem that we have, though, is it's not really the U.S. yet. We keep hearing about it. You know, there are countries overseas that don't have any of the standards that the United States has to cap their emissions. Yet everybody wants to demonize the U.S.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And you know, that's the thing. I think stories like this and the whole climate change thing as a whole. So I'm not going to say that climate change isn't real. I'm not going to be one of those head in the sand guys. But I think we're such a reactionary culture that we think, oh, we got to do something now. Not, hey, let's find a solution. Let's take the time, find a solution. We'll slowly start implementing it. And then guess what? We'll find we'll fix it. You can't ask for radical changes, in my opinion, overnight. You can't.
And one country, one or two countries, is not going to fix the problem.
Exactly.
It's a worldwide problem.
Exactly. This is something that the UN needs to be addressing, not the U.S. Different.
Right. I did look up some statistics on this stuff. Okay. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I pulled up a report says that ocean water is on the move.
Okay.
Yeah, CNN is the one that brought this story, saying that the currents are slowing down due to global warming. 2020, it was reported that currents were speeding up. 2018, it was reported that they were slowing down.
When you said 2020, did you mean year 2020 or the TV show 2020?
In 2020.
Okay, cool.
In the year 2020, it was reported that the currents were speeding up. In 2018, it was reported that they were slowing down. So this is something that's continually going back and forth.
Right.
The other thing would be this sudden talk of the magnetic poles
shifting. Yeah.
They think that within the next few hundred years.
Which, I mean, once again, it's happened before. It's going to happen again. I mean,
right.
The Earth ocean changes.
I mean, a meteor hit the Earth that wiped out the dinosaurs. At some point, a meteor is probably going to hit that's going to wipe out humans.
I remember the 90s when it was just like the one thing that we were worried about was like the common sense ozone layer where we could actually affect that. And, you know, and we were worried about the solar rays that could potentially burn us up. Yeah, we can affect the ozone layer. Bro, we can't affect the ocean. Like, I'm going to need you to calm the hell down. We can't be like, yo, ocean, I'm going to need you to speed this shit up.
Right.
You ain't meeting your quota.
Well, and you're going to have that group out there that will disagree, saying that the things we're doing is causing the planet to heat up, melting the ice caps, putting the fresh water in. And if we would stop doing that kind of stuff, they'd stop melting.
Which, I mean, I won't say that there isn't things we could do. Like I said, though, it's not something that we need to be putting like the Green New Deal. I feel like that's radical change that you're not going to get. Whereas if you come back and you're like, hey, bro, I'm going to need, like Obama, for example. I think Obama said, hey, by the year 2012, we need to have so many vehicles that have this percentage of emission. Well, okay, yeah, we can slowly start doing this with the emissions, and then eventually, yeah, we can have a whole electric field of cars. You can't be AOC and say, if you make another gasoline car, I'm going to fine you. Like, bro, come on.
Yeah, if we don't get rid of cows because their flatulence are killing the...
And, you know, we laugh about it, but this is some of the stuff that, like, it sounds like she's saying sometimes. And I know there's some AOC fans out there that are going to hate on me for that. But, you know, that's what some of this stuff does sound like to me.
Right.
It's like, bro.
But the big thing is, like I said, even if we move to all electric vehicles, you know, by a certain period, is Japan doing the same thing? Is China doing the same thing? Is India, Indonesia, any of these other places, are they doing the same thing? So by curbing the one country in the U.S., is that really going to turn the tide for the entire world?
And I would like to see the kind of data that, do countries follow our lead? I would say some countries do follow our lead. But with that being said, I would like to see the data that if we implemented these radical changes, and I want to see actual scientific data, not some BS report that you went out and got and you said, oh, well, I took water from the ocean 7 times a week for a year. No, I want to see scientific data that shows me if we implemented these radical changes, how much, just if the U.S. did it, how much we would actually help. Because I'm with you on this. Like, I'm not saying we shouldn't do anything, but I'm saying this needs to be something where we get everybody on board.
Right.
And, once again, the way you're going to do that is these small, minor fixes. Because some of these, and like I said, everybody. So some of these countries aren't going to be able to, make these changes to vehicle emissions because they're not as wealthy as us. They're not as blessed as us. So they can't make these changes easily. So we're going to have to be a little bit more lenient with them and things like that. Nessa says, I was reading about fuel cell vehicles and it was predicted that within 20 years or something like that, cars that use gas will be banned. 20 years is a long time.
I don't see it happening. I honestly don't
see it fully happening, but I see the wave we're going with, like the Teslas and so on and so forth. I feel like we're moving in that direction. I don't know if 20 years.
I don't think it'll be in 20 years though.
20 years is a pretty small number for me. But I think we'll have a sizable amount of gasoline vehicles off the road by 20 years, I believe. Hell, we got 20 years ago was 2000. We still got plenty of 2000 vehicles on the road right now.
There's still a lot of 90s
vehicles.
There's still a lot of 90s vehicles.
Right, and 80s. And shoot, everybody loves 70s and 60s muscle cars. Okay. Here we go. American Idiot of the Week. Mine's going to be easy. Gen Z, for all the damn unnecessary canceling that you do. There's plenty of demons in this world that you can go after and cancel. I'm going to need you to actually find one that's worth canceling. Just
Eminem's
please.
not it, huh?
Eminem's not it. Don't come from a boy.
For me, it's not Sorrento's, even though you're right, they would have been a good one.
Yeah.
For me, it was Kathleen Kennedy. When Kathleen Kennedy decided to go after, what's her name from The Mandalorian?
Carano.
When she decided to go after Carano, I kept my mouth shut and I wanted to see what all happened. There was large numbers of people getting rid of their Disney Plus subscriptions. It has just really gone downhill because at the end of the day, Kathleen Kennedy was not trying to write Star Wars. She was trying to push an agenda.
Oh, absolutely.
She has said she's not a Star Wars fan. So why would you have somebody that is not a Star Wars fan writing for Star Wars? And then to tell her co-writers that were writing episodes to push the agenda, not so much the stories.
And I'm pretty sure you mentioned that some of those co-workers are no longer with the project.
Yes. There was a handful of co-writers that were actually let go from David Favreau. Fired.
John Favreau.
Yeah. Sorry. John Favreau had fired those co-writers, citing a creative difference because they were trying to push an agenda, not write good Star Wars.
And mind you, creative differences is code for they were some dumbasses and we couldn't agree.
Right.
That's the nice way of putting that. That's
Kathleen Kennedy is my American Idiot of the Week for being more interested in pushing an agenda instead of trying to give fans stories they want.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we made it an hour and 35 minutes. I feel proud. Just the two of us. We made it an hour and 35 minutes. Hopefully y'all stayed entertained throughout. We had quite a few comments, so we do appreciate that. Don't forget, again, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And hopefully we'll have more next week for you. And yeah, with that being said, he's the Manic Hispanic. I'm Money Mike. We'll see you next week.
That I welcome this kind